so I'm going to read 3 short pieces. The political poem. Witness an act of faith that poetry matters. The political poem understands that poets are expendable, bunch of beggars. The political poem seeks out poets to give it errands. Feed this man, says the poet, clothe this child, and the poem obeys. The political poem, that misplaced romantic tendency, the political poem is going to save the world. The political poem is exhausted by the poet's intentions. By meeting them, it fails to meet them. The political poem succeeds by failing. The political poem is just trying to mean what it says. The political poem struggles to say what it means. The political poem is walking to the store to buy a carton of milk, and when it returns, it is planning to surprise you. This next piece is called 3 Heads of State in an Empty Cafe. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, President George W. Bush, and President Barack Obama meet in a quiet cafe. None of the 3 has met before. If you want this meeting to be whimsical, stage it in a Parisian cafe in the 1930s. In the opening shot, you can briefly cut to a scene of the Russian composer Igor Stravinsky and the American writer Ernest Hemingway having a passionate debate about the meaning of beauty, though obviously you don't want to get too hung up on historical accuracy in a piece like this. If you want the meeting to be crackling with tension, the setting could be an Israeli cafe on February 29th, 2008. Not only will the leap year add to the surrealistic atmosphere, but the 110 Palestinian casualties that resulted from Israel's response to stray rockets launched over its borders by rebels will add some much-needed human drama. The participants won't care much where you stage the meeting, as they will be too occupied with the burden of being world leaders during wartime. So long as the coffee is strong and some accommodation can be made to allow Churchill to smoke his trademark cigars. After the obligatory introductions, Churchill takes it upon himself to break the ice. War is a game that is played with a smile. If you can't smile, grin. If you can't grin, keep out of the way till you can, says Churchill. Bush nods his head enthusiastically. Obama takes a moment to consider the remark. Is that an inner grin or an outer grin? Inquires Obama. I'm just preparing my impromptu remarks, says Churchill. Obama looks puzzled. He just wants us to know that when we talk about war, we're really talking about peace, says Bush. Obama gestures to a waiter to order a coffee. Just then, a young Hitler walks by, paint on his hands and easel under his arm. In a rage, Churchill starts to rise from his seat. The audience cannot imagine what will happen next. The tension in the moment is incendiary. The entire first row of the theater spontaneously combusts, and several theatergoers rise from their seats and go to the lobby to get themselves a glass of water. Bush places his hand firmly on Churchill's shoulder. There's a time and place for everything, says Bush, without a trace of irony. Did you encounter your white whale? Asks Churchill. The once all-powerful ruler of Iraq was found in a hole and now sits in a prison cell, says Bush. Was a hole the right time and place? Asks Churchill. I'm the master of low expectations, says Bush. Just then, Obama turns his attention back to the conversation. I didn't see the weapons of mass destruction at the time. I didn't think there was an imminent threat from Saddam Hussein, says Obama. There's no such things as necessary in a dictatorial regime of ironclad, absolutely solid evidence. The evidence I had was the best possible evidence that we had a weapon, says Bush. It's a fine thing to be honest, but it is also very important to be right, says Churchill. The audience may at this point be wondering about what time-traveling apparatus or phenomenon facilitated this meeting. It would be crude for you to explain at this point. Therefore, I would suggest you drop a monkey into the scene, or a lemur if you don't have the budget for a monkey. The primitive primate could fall from the sky in a basket attached to a parachute. Or, for a less kitschy entrance, he or she could simply jump from a previously unnoticed chandelier into the center of the table, upsetting the coffee cups. This would then prompt Churchill to remark, Never hold discussions with the monkey when the organ grinder is in the room. The comment, which could be perceived as implicitly racist, would thus force the party into an uncomfortable silence, which Bush might then try to disrupt with a conciliatory response. This foreign policy stuff is a little frustrating. A dictatorship would be a heck of a lot easier, there's no question about it, he might remark. This would prompt an even longer, more uncomfortable silence. Usually of a diplomatic nature, but unable to contain his desire to return to his own time and his own presidency, Obama would stand up from the table, push in his chair, and in a firm, friendly manner begin to make his excuses. We have real enemies in the world. These enemies must be found, they must be pursued, and they must be defeated, says Obama. Churchill rises to shake his hand and responds, "You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood for something some time in your life." Bush bids the two men farewell and leaves the cafe, mumbling under his breath, "We will make no distinction." So I have one last piece. This is the one that's not in the anthology. It's somewhat new. It's kind of a response to trying to find a balance between becoming overly mesmerized by all the horrors in the world and going into escapism. So this is called Breathing Exercises. This is an instructional video. Watch me cultivate a perfect stillness within me. I sit in the garden watching the insects douse their wings and drown in the pools of mist. Watch as the silence fills me the way oxygen fills a vacuum. The picture jumps, the DVD is scratched beyond recognition, and the player spits it out. Please find some other way to entertain yourself. The rest of the disc is blank. I couldn't finish filming it. Get on Facebook and start playing Word Challenge. It's much better than Scrabble. Trust me. Inside my mind, you'll find a crowded window box where various genera of vegetation jostle for position. Fear tears across the hollyhocks like the rising sound of sirens invading from the street below. There is no need to dive into the wreck. The wreck has surrounded us and is waiting, but not for long. I listen to my heart rate. It's too fast. Try to find a way to make it falter. I slow my breath to a steady, rhythmic pace so it is less like life. Imagine the hospital bed. Imagine the sterilized cotton blankets. Imagine the tubes that act as umbilical cords to the respirator. Sometimes it is good to linger here. It will help you remember the difference between ache and stop. In this garden, I am as close to alone as I ever get. I am not alone. There is a girl, a stranger, sleeping on the same park bench. She twitches her leg like a dog's leg. Is she dreaming? Why can't I wake her? Thanks.